Hello, everyone, and welcome to ESCP Talks. This is the first event of this series that the purpose of it is to bring our intercultural values of ESCP to university and to exchange with students, staff members, CEOs, influential people from outside. So yeah, I am very happy about this event. I wanted to thank the ESCP Foundation for sponsoring and the ESCP Communication Department for helping us with the beautiful scene and the YouTube Live, because we're on YouTube Live right now. So thank you for that. I wanted to say I am so proud of seeing the Bachelor community rise, and such an event that was 100% made by Bachelor students of this magnitude is something new in ESCP, but it's not the last time we're going to see something like this. It's going to start now, but it's going to continue for many years to come and probably evolve for the best. I can see today a lot of familiar faces, which I'm very happy, and a lot of people that have accompanied me across my journey in ESCP. So yeah, it's my third year in the Bachelor program, and if I notice something at ESCP is the values that appear over and over. Obviously, every university says they have values, but I think this is something that I truly experienced at ESCP. I am very happy and honored that I could have such appreciation from from ESCP that helped us out, and without whom it wouldn't be possible for students to create events like this. And yeah, so this, let's say, this freedom that they give us is truly unique. So yeah. Also, I want to say EBS, the Bachelor Society, is all about giving back. It's all about we've seen the transition of ESCP coming from a European university to a French from a French university to a European university, and that is very important because once a university changes, its vision changes, its values change, and the Bachelor in Management is here to embrace those values, and this is why we have 4 excellent speakers. I am very happy to welcome our speakers, our 4 speakers today that are going to be presented by Monsieur Louza, and who are all of them have impressive backgrounds, culturally diverse, and so I had the chance to know some of them for my whole life and some others that I met right now, but I can say that I am very happy that they will be sharing some of that knowledge. So yeah, with that being said, I would like to welcome our acting director, Monsieur Louza, to give a welcome speech. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, André. Your Excellency, dear Marlene, dear Alexander, dear Rami, dear distinguished, dear colleagues, dear students, really warm welcome to ESCP. You know, we are a young startup of 204 years old, and you know, we appreciate very much this ESCP talk. And I would like to start by thanking of course, our Bachelor societies, all the team, in particular the president, Henrich Schellenberg, because this is a great initiative and also a great moment. And this is very important. And also, I would like to thank our foundations, and we have this evening the honorary chairman of the foundations, Christian Mouillon. You know that the foundation sponsored, as you mentioned, André, this event, and also, you know, our foundations, thanks to the donations and also companies, helped increase student experience, and this is very important, and that's why tonight, this evening as well, the foundation also sponsored that. And also I want to say the presence of our executive vice president in charge of executive education, Professor Simon Mercado, who is here today. Of course, some great alumni, as I can see as well here. And also, this is last but not least, you know, something very important for the school, to me, is our iconic, you know, former dean and also now the new deans of CIBS. I don't know if it's coming for the kind of intelligence, try to grasp, this kind of Europeans, intelligence about leadership. I would like to say it, and thank you for your presence, Franck Bournois, at this evening. You know that the topic of intercultural journey is very important because this is part of the essence of ESCP. We are preparing future purpose-driven leaders, entrepreneurs, in order to design a better, fairer, peaceful society. And that's why this is part of the DNA, thanks to the students, because we welcome more than 130 nationalities, and also I would say more than intercultural journey, it's a multicultural journey as well. So that's why we are very privileged this evening to have 4 great inspiring leaders, and as André mentioned, this is unique. And sometimes it's also part of the family, because among 2 of them are alumni of ESCP, and 2 of them are quite, how I can say, members of community indirectly, and you will understand probably later on. I would like to start with Your Excellency, of course, the State Secretary for Asian Pacific Affairs, Mr. Henrich Schellenberg, and thank you very much for your joining today, this evening, because this is very important, and you will give you more insight about your experience. The second, I would like also to thank Marlene Pelage. Thank you very much for your insight, because you went to Asia and now you are living in the US, and you will give more insight about your experience about intercultural and international, of course, journey. I would like also to thank Alexander Trommen, graduate in '93 from ESCP, and to give more insight about your experience, having more than, you will tell us more than 40 nationalities in your companies and startup, and how to collaborate with different nationalities. Of course, I would like also to thank my good friends, my dear friends, Rami Baitieh, and he went in so many countries, and now he's the CEO of Carrefour France, but before he went to Asia and America, and even in Southern Europe and so on. So he will give more insight about how to inspire this intercultural, international, and we say multicultural journey. So I'm sure that they will inspire you, they will inspire us, and they will share insight. And so thank you very much, and I wish you a great ESCP talk. Thank you.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to this hopefully first edition of the ESCP Talks on an Intercultural Journey. I'm Francesca Loria, I'm a second-year bachelor student, and I'm a professional event associate at the ESCP Bachelor Society, and tonight I will be telling you a bit more about this event and its purpose. Inspired by my experience with the TEDx for ESCP London, my idea for this project was to organize an event that would bring together not only people, but experiences, not only speeches and words, but valuable lessons that would help us continue our journey with more motivation and confidence. And I think that for a business school like ESCP, where we live in a melting pot of different cultures, the theme of interculturality not only feels personal to each single one of us sitting here tonight, but also can make somehow light up a candle inside of us and make us walk out of this room with more confidence and consciousness about the world that surrounds us. And particularly for the students that are attending this event tonight, I think that the talks will constitute an important example of how our future might look like if we continue walking on the path of interculturality. So I think there is honestly no better place than ESCP and no better society than the ESCP Bachelor Society to make this idea come true. And here we are tonight with 4 extremely interesting stories that I hope will have a positive impact on your life, on your career and your academia. Thank you again for coming, and I wish you a wonderful evening. Enjoy.
With that being said, thank you, Francesca Loria. We're going to start with our first ESCP talk. So someone very dear to me, with 30 years of diplomatic experience, Consul General in Shanghai, Ambassador of Saudi Arabia and Argentina, dedicated his whole life, his whole entire career in representing Switzerland to the outside world. I would please like to welcome the Assistant Secretary of State, Henrich Schellenberg. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and to speak to you about my life somehow. When André first asked me to give this speech, I was hesitant. First, because I'm on holidays. And second, because I'm used to giving speeches, but as a diplomat, and this is something more personal. So, but he convinced me. And especially the topic as such is somehow my life, intercultural journey, professionally and privately. So this map shows a little bit my life. These are the countries where I've lived along my career, mainly my career. There's just one country where I never lived, it's Spain. But Spain, my mother is Spanish, so I grew up in Switzerland. My mother being Spanish, we had Spain at home. And I'm currently, well, I've been married for 30 years with a Mexican. And you can imagine that there are some cultural differences. Generally speaking, it was surprising to see how similarly we think in many ways. But there's one challenge we're still working on, and it is time management. You can imagine that being Swiss, I'm obsessed with time. It's not by accident that Switzerland is a nation of watchmakers. But I also learned to be more flexible, more relaxed, and eventually that has been also a blessing for me. But I'm not going to talk about my life. I'll rather focus this speech on 3 lessons I have learned along these 30 years of diplomatic experience and the previous private life, some ideas which might be useful for you as well. So the first one is about cultural bias. Human beings have a strong cultural bias in general, which is something quite natural. And you can see this cultural bias, especially in Europe. It's quite marked, but not only in Europe. It's, I think, something which is normal in all countries and everywhere. My own education was very much Eurocentric. So I studied Latin for 7 years. History was focused on Greece, on Rome, Middle Ages. Everything revolved around Europe somehow. So other parts of the world were marginal in my education. I hope this has changed in the meantime, but back then, for instance, China hardly appeared anywhere. It was really totally marginal. I discovered China when I first went to China at the age of 22 to spend a summer at the university in Shanghai. So I would like to highlight this cultural bias with two anecdotes. First one, years ago, an African diplomat told me that in his country, in the 19th century, homosexuality was quite accepted, well accepted. Then came the Europeans and told them, that's bad, you have to forbid homosexuality. They forbid it. Centuries later, the same Europeans return to that country and tell them the prohibition of homosexuality is bad, you have to lift it. So this, obviously, the second time they were right, the Europeans, but it's just to highlight how we see the world through our specific European lens. Another anecdote, it's more personal. We were living in Shanghai. I was Consul General from 2010 to 2014. André, back then, was 10 years old. He was attending the French school in Shanghai, but he did not really live up to his parents' and his teachers' expectations. He refused to do his homework, and he was not paying attention in class, distracting others, so there was a total lack of discipline. But fortunately, we were living in the country of discipline, in China. So we had a good idea. We thought we sent him, during his holidays, to a Chinese school to learn some Chinese discipline and hard work. We talked to the headmaster of that school. He was accepted by school. We talked to the headmaster of that school, to the teachers, and asked them to be as severe with André as with other pupils of that school. Eventually, things came out totally differently. André, his first day in that Chinese school, when he entered his classroom, he was received with a standing ovation. And thereafter, he was pampered, looked after by his classmates and by the teachers. Obviously, we had assumed that the school would treat him like any other kid, but it was unthinkable that they would treat the son of the Consul General of Switzerland harshly. Switzerland or from any other country for that case. So there was a totally wrong interpretation from our side. Second idea. So this shows our move from Shanghai to Saudi Arabia, to Riyadh. It was a drastic cultural change. Obviously, we were not amused, especially my wife. She was shocked, and actually, she did everything to prevent this from happening, tried to sabotage my nomination. But as a diplomat, you cannot choose your destination. You go where your country sends you. So at the same time, it was an opportunity for me because I was being promoted. I was going to be ambassador for the first time. So we seized that opportunity, and there we went to Saudi Arabia, sulking and with self-pity. So that's how we spent the first few months. And thereafter, we started discovering a total new world behind this facades of religious rigidity, of strict dress codes, of hostility. So we started discovering a country with extremely hospitable people, very human people, and we made a lot of good friends. So they say that expats cry twice when they arrive in Saudi Arabia and when they leave Saudi Arabia. And that's exactly what happened to us. So Saudi Arabia was for us, surprisingly, very surprisingly, a very rewarding and enriching experience. So things sometimes are not what they look like. So be open to challenges, new opportunities, and be daring. Next idea. Don't just judge carelessly. So these are rules for female teachers. That's something I came across in Saudi Arabia. A friend of mine showed me this in Saudi Arabia. During the period of employment, do not marry. Do not mingle with men. From 8 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock in the morning, stay at home. Do not meet a man in an automobile unless he's your father or brother. You must not wear brightly colored clothes, and so on. This is actually a summary. The rules are much longer. And, well, it was very much what we saw when we arrived in Saudi Arabia. Ever since, things have changed a lot in that country. But surprisingly, it's not Saudi Arabia. It's the rules of female teachers in Zurich, my beloved hometown, Zurich, well, a century ago, but still, 1915. So, things we sometimes criticize elsewhere, were like this, were quite similar in our own countries years ago. And we are quite harsh when we criticize others. In Switzerland, for instance, women's rights to vote on a national level were introduced in 1971. Imagine, until 1971, women could not vote in Switzerland. There's a small alpine canton, Appenzell-Innerrhoden. They were forced by the Supreme Court of Switzerland in 1990 to give women the right to vote. 1990. It sounds quite unbelievable. Yeah. Well, today the rate of female members of parliament in Switzerland is 42%. It's among the highest in the world. So a lot has happened in the last 3 decades. But not so long ago, it was quite different. And we tend to be very much shocked and outraged about things we see in other countries, in other cultures. And we judge them very rashly, very quickly, while we have a kind of culture of indignation. It's quite widespread. At the same time, maybe in our countries, things were not that different not so long ago. So that does not mean that we don't have to uphold our convictions and promote them. But we have to bear in mind that we have to bear in mind our own shortcomings and our own history. So understanding others is a challenge, and leaving the comfort zone is an effort. You have to make an effort. It's much easier to stay in your comfort zone, your cultural comfort zone, geographical comfort zone. But if you do it, you miss an opportunity. An opportunity to get a better understanding, a better grasp of the world, and it's worthwhile making this effort. It's essential for taking informed, well-informed, good decisions, especially in our world today, where you are very much exposed to other cultures, understanding others and having a good grasp of them is essential in order to be successful. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now welcome on the stage the CEO of one of the most prominent digital agencies in Germany. Studied at ESCP, graduated in 1993, built this company based on interculturality. Let's give a round of applause for Alexander Trommen.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's a real pleasure to be here. Actually, almost 30 years after I graduated from EAP, the former sister school of ESCP, and luckily and successfully merged into ESCP to become an even more powerful organization nowadays. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about our expertise and our experience from navigating our intercultural journey. When we started our company 13 years ago, we did not intentionally plan to build an international and intercultural team. We were actually pretty happy where we started the company in Leipzig. And when you're in software, or in general, I think nowadays if you're a startup, it is very difficult to grow rapidly when you only focus on your local, call it Leipzig, or your national talent pool in Germany. So as we have always been very ambitious as founders, we took the path of internationalizing our recruiting, and we started hiring people from abroad. And just last year, we hired about 100 new, what we call Appsfactorians, and from 28 different nations. So you can imagine being a small startup, at the time 300 headcount, hiring another 100 is quite a big challenge of integrating people from so many different backgrounds, be it nationality, language, education, religious background, etc., etc. And what I'm trying to show you is one of the key principles what we think we had to implement in the organization to master that intercultural journey successfully. And when I look at the organization, hiring so many people, so many different people, actually sometimes growing an organization is a bit like painting a picture, and you never know the outcome. And this picture, actually, I don't know who remembers it, but this is a stereogram picture. They were very popular in the 80s and the 90s, a time most of you, at least the students, haven't even been born. But it's not going to be like a history lesson or whatever. But it represents beautifully, in a certain way, I think, the addition everybody gives to the organization. Everybody adds a couple of sprinkles and color and touches to this picture, which is the organization. And when we started the company, as I said, we were 3 German male founders, and the first 2 employees we had were 2 German male programmers. And so not very international at the time. But as I said, over the last 10 years, we've grown to 400 in headcount from 46 nations with 13 religions and a lot of different sexual orientations. And I'm super proud of actually what we've achieved as a team, not just as a management, of bringing all these people together and still maintaining the same USPs and cultures that we had right from the start. And I believe it was only possible because we were able to, let's say, engrave in this organization a certain set of, call it, secret sauce. And to uncover that secret sauce, I'm going to make an experiment with you, which is a bit difficult. It works for some of you, and it may not work for some of you. First of all, if you wear glasses, it doesn't work with glasses. So you have to take off your glasses. I've basically distributed this stereogram image to, I think, in front of most of you, so you can turn it around. And to see what's engraved, actually, I realized our designers forgot the up and down side, actually. So probably you see the letters or the word that is supposed to show up on the top. But what you have to do is basically put this picture really close to your nose and almost stare through it. And then you slowly actually take it away from, actually it works with glasses. I realized, they told me it would not work with glasses, but it does. So, and then some letters actually appear. And is there anybody who can see them? Okay, so basically, what it's all about, I think, or what at least is a very, very major thing of importance, are principles. So we tried with every new member and every member of our team, we try to establish some principles. Now, why are principles so important? And obviously, this is a bit of funny GIF, but it brilliantly shows that speed is nothing without direction. That's actually what it should show. Now, whatever we do, we always try to work as a team. And it's really, really important, especially nowadays, where we have so much change. We had so many economic disturbances, call it, in the last few years, from Corona to financial crises, etc., etc. So you can no longer, like in the old days, master a chain of command where decisions are actually somehow escalated through the corporate hierarchy ladder. Especially when you organize your teams, and in software development, this has become the gold standard in agile methods. Agile methods mean you delegate decisions to your team. So actually, you have to empower your team. The team needs to make the decisions. Obviously, you could also start writing massive organizational handbooks or wikis, which are very popular. But everybody who is in management or is in a larger organization, once you start browsing the wiki, you know there's hundreds of pages and you never find actually what you need for that certain moment. And even search is not really good. So in our opinion, you have to have principles. And those principles, how do they actually fit into the general, let's say, management philosophy? And probably a lot of you have always been talking about or heard about vision, mission, and values, but very few people talk about principles. And if you look at the vision, it basically shows where do we want to be as a company in the future. The best known vision probably is Google's vision, like we want to organize every information in the world and make it accessible. So very simple. That's where we want to go. That motivates employees, that motivates the team, gives a common direction. But it's very abstract because it's actually a couple of years in the future. The mission is, why do we exist as a company? Yeah? Why do we exist? Why is it necessary that we work? So for us, for example, our mission is News Beautiful. So we want to be the outsourcing partner for our clients when they do new and latest technology stuff or things that haven't been done before. And then there's values. And typically, values should be actually drafted or born from the organization. So this is who we are or who an organization is. When you come to an organization as a future employee, you know what you get to some extent. You know how the people are, what is really important, and everybody has this value. No assholes, and don't work with assholes and that kind of stuff. So, but apart from those things, what we think is very, very important are the principles, because they are the foundation. Without principles, mission, vision, and values are a bit decoupled from the daily work, because it does not really help you in your decision-making and in your daily work. So, as this has been a bit abstract, I'm going to try and I'm going to show you some of the principles that we have, and actually the slides, original slides, from how we actually present our principles to our newbies when they actually join our company in a couple of, in the first days. And the first may sound a bit obvious, but actually I found it one of the most difficult principles to establish. No decision without data. Don't fear the facts is an old McKinsey statement, so some of the principles are probably in brackets borrowed. But it's really, really important when we do have management meetings or every kind of meetings in the organization, we encourage people always to come with a set of data to the meetings. Because in those 30 years, I think everybody would expect that as a manager, you're focused on data and everything's prepared by data. But my experience is most people actually listen to their stomach or whatever, they listen to their background, they think they know everything. There's more of these, like, I know everything around us, than you would probably believe as students. So that can be a really small decision. Do we lease our laptops or do we buy the laptops? Take into account all the difficult things that need to be taken into account. The next one that we always focus on is complaining about a problem, is one thing. But the other thing is always bring to the table or to the meeting some solutions, some alternatives. You don't necessarily, if you're not sure, or if our employees are not sure what actually to do or what not to do, that's not a problem. But we always want to have actually some alternatives and some reasoning for the alternative on the table. And that as well is a very, very important thing to keep the company at a faster pace in solving problems. And the third one is, another common thing that happens is when people are under stress or they have to solve urgent problems, they start solving the problem. Very popular with developers. Okay, I have to complete a task, like that's 1,000 lines of code, that's easy. So, and probably the most biggest problem in software development is actually, have we done it before? No, I don't search for it. It's just a waste of time. I start building. Because I can build it very fast. I can build it in 2 days. Doesn't really matter if somebody else has built it already 2 weeks ago, exactly the same thing. Let's just build it. And anyway, I can build it better. So think twice is very, very important, because otherwise you duplicate efforts. Or I think it's a famous statement of Einstein once, where he said, I think if there's a problem, he would take 80% of the time he has to save, I think, the world, thinking about the problem, 10% solving the problem, and then 10% implementing the solution or so. And I think this is actually what this Giphy represents. And like the fourth, and I'm only going to have 5, is also very, very important. I think this is a scene from the movie of the Jamaican bobsleigh team. And very, very important for us, always include the client. It may sound easy in B2B, because obviously we, for example, only have 80 clients, whereas, for example, Carrefour probably has, like, I don't know, 20 million clients or whatever. But still, then you have market research, your focus groups, etc. And it is very, very easy often to think, I know what the client does, I know what the client doesn't want to do, etc., etc. Make sure you get marketing input, make sure you get in direct touch with the client. It's a very, very crucial thing in our experience for corporate success. And the last principle I'm going to show, we have about 40 principles. In general, they're evolving, is maximize automation. One of our key principles is probably the reason why, one of our core factors also why we have been successfully growing with and over time. That's a very famous saying. Americans like, it's also a prejudice, as we've heard some already, but I'm going to add now the one on the Americans. Americans solve problems by putting bums to seats, and that is not actually my invention or my statement, but my previous company was partly owned by a very large American game publisher. And whenever a game was delayed, they were putting more product managers on the game. So actually, in the end, we ended up at a game with probably 20 developers and 5 product managers. And I have a very similar case at the moment at a very large European media company where we help them, and there's actually too many product owners. So it does not necessarily help adding resources to any project or so. It also creates a lot of complexity. So make sure that whatever you do, and that is a repeating task, make sure that you automate everything that's possible, because it's a key for stability in the organization and make things much easier. Some closing thoughts. You may actually wonder how we came up with these principles. So it's actually not that the 3 managing directors were sitting there and what do we think is right, and they just write this down. So those principles have evolved over the last 10 years. And we continue to change them, because if we see some of them are less relevant, some of them, then we delete them. Some of them are not really understandable, so then we have to split them up like tasks or so. And this is actually evolving over time. And despite all these things with the principles, I would like to share one last thought. I've been attending South by Southwest last week, the conference in Austin. And the best statement that I saw was from a guy who is the publisher of the book of the 50 non-obvious trends. And it very well relates to what I said with the principles, because these principles shall not be guidelines. They shall not be thought about like, this is what you have to do, like very German stuff. No, it's actually it's trying to understand people. It's trying to understand the difficulty that people have in implementing your way of work. And that's very, very key. So we do have these principles, not because we want to produce clones of ourselves in some extent. We do these principles because we think we want to understand, or we try to understand what people need to be more successful and to be a joint team. And I think the main thing, and it's probably for all of you, I think the most important thing, always remember, the people who understand people always win, whatever you do. You can be a programmer, you can be a marketing guy, but that's a key thing. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Trommen, for your speech. We will now be welcoming on the stage the 1993 graduate, again from ESCP, from the worked all around the world, from Fort-de-France to Hong Kong to New York. She's now the CFO of IPG Mediabrands. So let's give a round of applause for Marlene Pelage.
Can you hear me? All good? Thank you. Have you ever wondered what it would take to have a fulfilling career on a global stage? Is it luck, hard work, the right connections, originality, courage, risk-taking, perhaps all of the above? I'm here to share with you my story. The story of a girl who was born in Martinique, an island in the Caribbean Sea, that defied the odds, took chances to become the first female CFO of one of the leading banks in the US, later the global CFO of a media advertising giant, and more recently, the board director of NetScout, a NASDAQ-listed company that offers cybersecurity solutions. But more than a story, I would like to share with you 5 key insights that I wish I had known some 30 years ago. Good evening. My name is Marlene Pelage. I'm an honored graduate of ESCP Business School, class of 1993, and a very proud parent of 3 young adults, one of whom is here with us tonight in the room. To anchor and contextualize this story, I'd like to say at the outset that I spent most of my life as an outsider, someone different. Beginning in Martinique, as a biracial kid where I had to navigate complicated social interactions at school, to attending these very institutions in these very locations some 30 years ago as one of the few minority students, at a time when efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion were not as pervasive as they are today. This position as outsider was at times comical or endearing. When I was in Hong Kong, the kids in the subway would point at me and say, "Guahu, Guahu," which means monster, because of my height and my skin tone. Other times, it was really downright annoying, particularly in the corporate settings when performance assessment would highlight that I was addressed too feminine, I was too ambitious, I sounded too French, too Caribbean, too different. But far from being a victim, I'm sharing this story because it really taught me from the early stages adaptability and resiliency, which I thought were undoubtedly essential in my ability to navigate my career. Perhaps this story resonates with some of you. And for those who are looking to embark on an international career, just know that you have this feeling as an outsider. You will bring your own cultural norms, you will bring your own accent. But you must know that you can transform this reality into a superpower. I will not walk you through all the twists and turns of my career. I will give you the Reader's Digest so we can anchor the timeline, and I will move on to the 5 key insights. This map is not as complicated as the one we saw from Assistant Secretary, but I have traveled a bit. So beginning in Martinique, 1972, I moved to ESCP in 1993, and I made a decision to apply to an ESCP sanctioned exchange program at Drexel University, which is in Philadelphia. And I believe that I was a turning point in the way it created optionality for the rest of my career. In the summer of 1993, so I graduated with a Master in Management from ESCP and an MBA from Drexel University. I then decided to move to New York to embrace a career in finance. 1994, I moved to Hong Kong, where I started working as a credit analyst for Crédit Agricole, and very quickly migrated to a trading floor to oversee risk management in a mostly male-dominated trading floor. And over the ensuing years, in this order, watched the China handover, had my first son, and observed the impact of the financial crisis on Southeast Asian markets, as well as on financial titans such as ING Barings. Mid-1998, moved to the UK, and I was given responsibility to deal with the Y2K bug. You can Google it later. 1999, I returned to New York. 2002, I packed up my entire family, moved to San Francisco, and I took the helm of a family-owned wine company. Only to quickly realize that it was a very capital-intensive unit, did not pay the babysitting bills. So therefore, I decided to go back to my first passion that was also paying the babysitting bills, and I started working at Charles Schwab in 2005. Over the ensuing years, over 16 years, I migrated from a risk analyst position, became chief of staff, head of strategy of client solutions, and finally, in 2019, CFO. And in the midst of a pandemic, because why not, moved to IPG Mediabrands. So let's get into the insights. Insight number 1, do the work and aim for A+. There's been a plethora of research and publications around grit and determination. And Angela Lee Duckworth, an American psychologist, conducted a lot of research in various fields: academia, military, corporate world, and sports, and concluded that grit, which is a combination of passion and perseverance for a singularly important goal, is the most deterministic factor of success. Think about this. Show of hand in the room of those who want to pursue a career in finance. Great. Law, public service. Great. Entrepreneurship. Great. No matter what you do, you have to realize the first few years will not be glamorous. For those who want to become Jeff Bezos, or even Alexander Trommen, it might take a bit more time, but no matter what you do, apply yourself. For me, whether I was asked to reorganize an archiving room for credit files, true story, and I'm dating myself, or conduct a due diligence of a textile company in Jakarta, organize a business trip for the founder of one of the largest financial institutions in the world, in China, or even prepare for a board meeting, the effort that goes into the preparation has to be the same, no matter what the stakes are. It will ensure that at the very minimum, you are going to be sticking the landing and deliver, and more importantly, it will showcase to folks around you, to your boss's boss, that you are accountable, dependable, and always prepared. This first insight is very easy to implement. You can actually start tonight. Insight number 2, take calculated risks and do not use the easy path. For me, I've had to make very difficult decisions. The one I made 2 years ago to leave an amazing job and uproot my family from California in the midst of a pandemic was not easy. Deciding to go to Hong Kong at the age of 20, not trivial. Living in Martinique at the age of 17, with a few francs in my pocket, that was a thing at the time, a suitcase, and only a very vague idea as to what I wanted to do. Really tough. But in all cases, the decision that I made passed these 3 basic tests, which I would urge you to ask yourselves. Will the new opportunity that you are considering going to give you the skills and experiences that you would not have had at your sitting position? Will we open to you new relationships and have you meet new folks that you would not have met? And 3, most importantly, will the new job or experience create new branches on your decision tree of opportunities going forward? This is what we call optionality, and a bit like in a chess game where you have to actually plan 2 moves or 3 moves ahead. If you answer yes to 1, 2, or all these questions, do not wait. Jump. Lean into the discomfort and take this leap of faith. And for me, I have to say that you are going to fail, because one thing I can guarantee you is that one learns from failures or discomfort, and sometimes both. And if that happens to you, take a deep breath, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and carry on. If it hurts, it might hurt sometimes. You'll be the wiser for it. Insight number 3, speak truth to power, particularly when you have the facts. Very important. They say history repeats itself, and actually this segment might be a bit reminiscent of what we are reading currently in the news. Back in the 2000s, in the US, there was a significant increase in US home ownership. Along with it was a proliferation of mortgage products. These mortgage products were structured in residential mortgage-backed securities, also known as RMBS. I was told that you study that in finance. And Schwab, as part of his investment strategy, invested billions of dollars in these private label mortgage-backed securities, which were AAA rated, which meant that they had a low probability of default. I requested responsibility for this portfolio because I had had experience as a market risk manager on the trading floor. It would take the entire evening, and we don't have the time, to explain to you in reading details how I came to find out that we were in fact sitting on mortgages that had been issued with faulty underwriting standards. By the summer of 2007, it was evident that we would have issues around mark-to-markets and perhaps liquidity exposures. The facts, by the way, were irrefutable. Credit delinquency trends were going up. The underwriting standards were faulty. The credit enhancement was insufficient. And the housing market was in free fall. I was able to convince the head of my credit and risk management team, which is important, because in order to speak truth to power, you need to have a credible sponsor. The findings were elevated to the highest levels of the organization. We took swift actions. And more importantly, the discovery and the documentation of these findings was sufficient to enable Schwab to actually defend itself in class actions against certain issuers and recoup, if not all, most of the losses. I can assure you that I was not asked to work in an archiving room after this stint. Insight number 4, stay true to your core values. Understand your priorities and stay true to your core values. Show of hand in this room if anyone feels that life is going to happen according to plan. Oh, great. We have an optimist here, or maybe a lucky person. I can share with you that in my humble opinion, it's not the case, and we share a very personal story. Recall that in 1999, I returned to New York from London. I had my second child. A few days before going back to work, I found out that Alexander, my son, had been diagnosed with profound hearing loss. Those were devastating news. We had suspicions, but when he was a year old, we conducted a test which revealed the diagnosis. This changed my life. And I made it my life mission to ensure that Alexander would have a normal and fulfilling life. I threw myself into research around causes for deafness, the deaf community, and to understand why 2 babies out of 1,000 babies in the US are born with a hearing loss. And I was determined to find a solution. Alexander received his first cochlear implant, which is a hearing aid which is implanted under the skull, when he was 1.5 years. This is Alexander with his brother, Ernie. And at the age of 5, he would be mortified if he knew that I was sharing this picture with you. He received his second cochlear implant. I'm sharing this story because, and I hope that obviously this situation doesn't happen to you, it was unexpected, draconian, traumatic, but you will have difficult choices to make. And I'm telling you that it is okay to put your career on pause. It's okay just to stop for a second and really reprioritize and focus on what's important to you. And you can get back on the saddle down the road. This picture will show you that it was the right decision for me to make. That's Alexander after he gave a graduation speech of his middle school. Last insight, and I can assure you that I was not paid by your teachers to share that with you. Education never ends. It's not because you are leaving this gate that you have to sit on your laurels. Continue your education through formal channels, classes, certifications, accreditations, or informal channels, experiences, books, languages. For me, what it looked like when I was helping Alexander regain access to sound and speech, I actually studied for the CFA, which is a Certified Financial Analyst Accreditation. I got it right. And I also studied for securities licenses. And in my late 40s, I actually went back to school. I went back to Wharton Business School and attended an executive leadership course. You can do the same. You can pick a new hobby. You can learn a new language. You can read, and I mean just not TikTok, let's be clear, actual books. But you can certainly make a lifetime commitment to learning. And you can also study history. It will make you 10 times more aware and more anticipatory than you are. So what do I hope to leave you with? Really, these 5 insights that I wish I had known 30 years ago again. Aim for A+, always, in the effort, and the results might actually show it. Take calculated risks. Speak truth to power, especially if you have the facts. Know your values and uphold them no matter what. And sharpen the saw. I will leave you with this quote, which is so dear to me, and I hope it is as well to you. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave, hopefully, a trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene, for this incredible and very inspiring discourse. We're now coming to our final speaker of the night. So stemming from making his first master's degree in finance in the École Supérieure de Commerce de Compiègne in finance, starting as a purchasing manager at Carrefour and staying there for 11 years, with now over 8 years of CEO experience in Taiwan, Argentina, Spain, and recently France. Please welcome the CEO and member of the board of Carrefour France, Rami Baitieh. Thank you.
Wow, when I listened to the previous speakers, I mean, a lot of learnings and a lot of inspiration for me. So thank you very, very much, really. I'm Rami. I was born in Lebanon, and I spent 18 years there until I passed the high school. And when I finished the high school, my parents received a call on our telephone at home, and they said the Centre Culturel Français wants to talk to Rami. So, okay, take the phone, I take the phone. So we offer a scholarship in France for the 3 first students in Lebanon. You can go to France, think about it over the coming 7 days. And the other year I was hearing the bombs and all this kind of stuff. I said, what do you want me to think about? I say, yes, let's go. I come to France and I studies IT, business school, and then I start at Carrefour from the bottom of the position you could start. Then I'm asked by my company to go to Poland. After Poland, to continue to Turkey, and then go across Romania. And then I had my first general manager position in Taiwan. After Taiwan, Argentina, then Spain, and as André mentioned, after Spain, I'm back to France for now almost 3 years. I remember when I went to Taiwan, I was in Shanghai to understand the culture there. And every time I go to see the people at home, to understand the culture, to understand the customer. And I remember I went into this room, and I saw the map, the world's map. But it's not the world map that I know. Because from my point of view, Europe is in the center. We have the Americas and we have Asia, but Europe is in the center. And what I saw in Shanghai, I saw the China in the center. So what is this? I needed some seconds, even more, to understand that this is a map, but from the other's point of view. I also remember when I went to Japan for 1 week training about customer service, and I saw the president of very known Japanese companies welcoming their employees at 8 o'clock in the morning, saying, hello, welcome to work. And when I asked the president about why they do that, say, we want them to be encouraged, motivated, and I want to be there at 8 o'clock to welcome them to the office. They don't do this every day, but at least once a week or even a little bit more. I was in Romania at that time. So the week later, I went to Romania. I wanted to do the same. At 8 o'clock, I was there at the entry of the office, say, hello, everyone. And 5 minutes later, I heard someone saying to his colleague, the boss is controlling at what time we arrive at the office. So talking about cultural differences, I remember when I arrived in Argentina. Argentina was a country for Carrefour losing something like 90 million euros per year. And my first meeting with the COMEX executive committee, I remember them, they were just sitting comfortably with mate, you know, this Argentinian tea, and looking at me like that. And of course, I write on the board, because every time I ask for a board to explain what I'm gonna do, the principles, the vision, the values. And I write all over the board, but nobody comes to help me to erase the board. I say, hi guys, I come from a country, which was Taiwan, where when I finish to write on the board, I have 8 people who jump in order to erase. They said, welcome to Argentina. I remember that once I was in Spain, I asked, do you have any lemon? You want lemon? He said, yes, I need a lemon. Okay, give you a lemon. So I took a lemon with water, etc. That day I wanted that. And I remember that in every store visit during my whole journey in Spain, I had every time a lemon next to a glass of water. So there's this discipline. Okay, here in France I say orange, lemon, nothing happened. So, see, understanding the culture difference is very, very important when you know people actually, yes, you understand people and you can win always. Here are the cultural differences. But also I learned that there are things that are not different. Whatever the culture, maybe I know 7, 8, 9 cultures. Even my own family, there are many cultures. But I learned also that there are things that they don't change. When we talk, for example, about values, when we talk about the client, the customer, I believe that the customer doesn't change. The behavior change, but the service to customer, this doesn't change. And if I was sent by my company to such a number of countries, it's because I have become, by the fact, the fireman who is sent actually to turn over the country where we have losses. So this is my understanding from next to cultural differences. There are things that don't change. Let me show with you maybe, I don't know how to use this one, right? Okay, okay. Up. This is France, but maybe this can be the same slide actually with the last 6 countries. You come is red, and then a few months later it becomes green. So what is the key? What's the key point? Okay, well, we talked about the cultural differences to understand things, but what happens behind? There are things that they don't actually change, whatever the culture. Here you are. Customer centricity. Customer centricity, whatever in Taiwan, whatever in Argentina, in Romania, in Turkey, in Spain, or even in France. Customer centricity doesn't change. Of course, the customer has different behavior from one country to another. However, customer centricity stays and remains the key number 1 actually to turn over. So just let me share with you some examples. When I take a mission, I take over a mission. So I put my email in the web. You know, to go to www.carrefour.com, and then you see if you have any problem with Carrefour as a customer, supplier, or employee, you may write to general manager, just click there. And I receive the email, and immediately I answer. Of course, the first day I receive hundreds of emails. It's not the objective for me to become the call center. However, my objective is to make sure that the call center does its job. And if not, if I receive an email that must be treated by the call center, I redirect the email to the call center. And so on. Round tables with the customers, round tables, and go to visit the customers where they work, where they live, and to understand the best way possible the customers. Today we are more than 5,600 stores in France, and I ask every store to organize one round table with customers, so at least 10 customers that we listen to every week, multiplied by 5,600 stores. And then we have a lot of data that is registered in our server, and then we can use this data actually to enhance the service for the customers. So this, whatever the culture, whatever actually the situation in the country, this remains the same. In France, for example, we ask the store managers to put their phone number and their contact at the store entrance. You say, for example, call the manager, please. I want to talk to the manager. Here you are. You can call the manager yourself, and then you get the answer. I remember once in France, in one store in near Paris, north of Paris, one customer wrote me an email and said, I have problem in the store. One person treated me not nicely. I said, okay, please go to the entrance of the store, and you have a phone number, and you can call this phone number, and the manager will come to you to solve the problem. So she said, okay, I will do it. Then she wrote me again, She said, I called the phone, I called the number, which was at the store entrance, and guess what? The guy who mistreated me is the person who is on the picture. So it's here you have, I mean, to continue cultural change inside the company. It's not only about the big society, but it's also cultural change inside the company to put the customer and the employee on the top. Because happy employee is happy customer, and happy customer, happy shareholder. This is the way it goes actually. I also experienced that digital, whatever the country, is absolutely necessary. And I love the video from taking the ticket, giving it back. Of course, every time we can automate something, we need to do it. And whatever actually the culture, the cultural differences, etc., digital is key. Digital is, the more you invest in digital, the better it is. However, what you need in digital is the direction. Without the direction, speed doesn't mean anything. So digital with the right direction, spending, the expenditures, they are investment. So very important topic, the digital. Also the values. Our values in Carrefour is to act for food, is to have some commitments for the sustainability, for the earth, for our future. Maybe 10 years ago, we were thinking that the planet issue is for the next generation, maybe your generation. Now we are observing that the question is for our generation already. Because what's happening, I mean, from 1 year to another, from one quarter to another, is so heavy that we have all our responsibilities toward this planet before talking about the next generation. So we're talking about 2040, 2050. I think that the responsibility now, and I mean, it's for tomorrow, it's for 2025, 2030 as latest in terms of weather and temperature and sustainability of our planet. And this, whatever the country, whatever the culture, we need to take care about our planet. Otherwise, it will be a big problem for everyone. Last is taking care about people. Taking care about people, the School of Leaders that I created in Argentina, that helps anyone from the company. We are talking about, in France, for example, 150,000 employees. Any one of them can raise hand and say, I want to evolve in the company. I'm not talking about those who had the chance and the capacity to study in great schools and universities. I'm talking about people who didn't have first chance or didn't know how to use it or anything of that. You know, you raise your hand and say, I'm a cashier and I want to become a director. Okay, just you raise your hand and you go into the School of Leaders, and then you follow 6 months studies, a classroom and a store, practical, warehouses, digital, etc. 6 months later, you get graduated. You have exam at Dauphine in France, and in every country we founded a partnership with the university. Here in France, we founded with, we signed with Dauphine. So you pass all the exams, academic exams in Dauphine, and then you get graduated from Dauphine and from Carrefour. And we have now already 1,200 employees who became managers, and some of them, they are already senior managers, and some of them are preparing to become directors. So change of the level. And last year, we had 42% of women, and this year we will be 51% of women. So I think these principles, these values, whatever the country, they remain the thing. And again, thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much for you, because this is very inspiring, a lot of insight. It's about intercultural intelligence. And I learned something, and thank you, a lot of people learned a lot. I think they have one word, I would say, care people. Care people is an acronym, actually, after listening to you. Care, what does it mean? It means C for cultures, connections, courage. A stands for adoptions, adaptations, agility. R for resilience, and E for extra work, because you are, fourth of you, extraordinary leaders. Thank you so much. That's why, with André, we would like to offer you our certificate from the Bachelor Society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monsieur Lelouza. Yeah, with this being said, I would please ask the speakers to come to the stage so we can give you the certification of the first ESCP talk. Thank you. Please come here.
Mr. Your Excellency.
Papa, come here. Papa, come.
Après, c'est Rami. OK.
And we give these, yeah?
No, lady, actually. Marlene.
The ESCP Foundation also gave us a bit of ESCP wine for the speakers, so yeah, we're also going to hand them that.
Christian, venez.
Is a picture? Take a picture? Yeah? Yeah, of course, yeah. Good. Now I'm going to please ask all the staff members from ESCP, executive committee from ESCP to come here to take a picture with our dear speakers, please. Thank you again, Henrich Schellenberg, Marlene Pelage, Alexander Trommen, and Rami Baitieh for coming. Now, the most awaited moment of the evening, the ESCP Foundation is sponsoring the event, so we have a cocktail waiting for us for 100 people. I would please like everyone to go to Jean-Baptiste Say, the room right next to you, to enjoy the cocktail. I hope you enjoyed the event and enjoy the evening. Thank you very much.